Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 8. It is called Mercy. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And let's see if this one managed to right the ship after last week's disaster of an episode. We shall find out. So... I'll go on then, Tara. Give us your initial impressions.
It's better than last week.
I think that's a fair statement. The bar is pretty low, so it doesn't necessarily gauge much, but it's a fair statement.
Yeah, it's definitely better than last week. We see some new magic that Guinan's able to do. That's kind of neat. I don't know. I thought the whole subplot with this FBI guy who's investigating them as aliens was
a bit pointless.
Interesting, but then settled really fast, and it seemed a bit
I think,
why was he introduced? I don't know. just to bring up this reiterate this theme that everybody's got trauma and we all maybe have a misunderstanding of it, or.
Well, no, I think you're right to question this. I would also like to point back to last episode where we spent a few minutes theorizing a few possibilities about him. Like, he might secretly be this other character. Maybe he's actually a Q because he showed up after the ceremony. And in actuality, he was just a boring FBI agent who is a bit of a Mulder. He's kind of obsessed with finding aliens. And that's it.
The truth is out there.
And honestly, as I was watching this plot play out, it kind of became more and more apparent as the episode was going on just how unimportant this guy is and what this little tangent from the... I mean, yes, by the end of the episode, because I thought it was built... Because at one point it felt like Picard was going to enlist his help because he's honest with them to a point and tells them some stuff. And it's like, I'm going to need your help. And it's like, dun, 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 right? But then the guy...
believe in aliens? Let's go to space.
But then the guy gets, fired, and all he really does is hey, you can go now. That's it. That's the extent of his help, is you can leave. We could have just... All
it took was one Picard speech.
But we could have just not had them be arrested. We could have just skipped an episode. This felt like a filler episode. I'm just going to call it what it is. It feels like filler.
Yeah, but every single episode has been this it's ended on, ooh, how are they going to get out of this pickle? And then the next episode they spend a day getting out of a pickle, but it's not adding to the broader story like I thought it would.
Yep. It's happened multiple times now where a lot of the predicaments they've gotten into haven't actually been that important when you really think back to the point of what the story's supposed to be.
It's just we need to get here and we're stuck, and then we get over here and now we're stuck again, and we get over this place and now we can't get out.
Yeah, Joe, what it is? I
don't know. It's just been the same formula.
No, Joe, what it is?
Kind of disappointing.
And you hate when I say this, but it is just really clunky formulaic writing. That's what it is.
I wonder if this is another just pandemic thing. I know I brought it up before, where it's just we want to keep everybody separate, so it's just Jeri's on with the Borg Queen. Picard is with Guinan or whoever, and Raffi and Seven are together doing their thing, and then Rios is with the girl, the doctor lady.
I still call bullshit though, because tons of TV shows have plots that have their characters split up for their individual story arcs, and they're still good. It can still work. And the more this season goes on, the more the cracks of it's kind of just really, like you say, formulaic. We're going to have a cliffhanger, we're going to get in a predicament, we're going to spend the next episode getting out of it. But as you look back on it at the end, get into Picard's head and dealing with that, well, it did unveil one interesting idea. By and large, doesn't feel that important to the story. This episode, being arrested, and this guy who's obsessed with finding aliens, and then eventually Picard actually tells him he's from the future. Ultimately, unless he ends up being important in the finale, which I'm not feeling, or the next two episodes, it feels just kind of like a weird tangent. And And there's this weird thing at the end of it where Guinan's like, you know what, Picard, I really like you now, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you. And all I could think was, what about this episode gave you that feeling, Guinan? Because I didn't really get, like, it's not like you saw him convince someone to believe in hope or something. Like, you were out of the room.
Yeah, but I mean, he did have a complete 180 when the next time Guinan did see him. They're like, yeah, all right, you can go. You're free. I never actually turned you guys in. And
I don't
you don't have to worry about anything.
I don't buy the change for a second. It felt like just a switch had been flipped.
I don't know. I don't. That part didn't really bother me at all. It was more the I don't know. Like I thought there was going to be more of a thing, but I guess it's just he has some trauma because he misinterpreted what he saw, and Picard's like, "Oh, you didn't get molested by adults in the woods when you were a kid. You actually were mind melded by an alien that's a friendly alien, so don't worry about it." And I guess his life's work is over. He doesn't have this drive anymore. I mean, there's a little bit of a if they're going for childhood trauma here, there is very much a parallel between this and molestation, because it is very much. Well, I mean, Picard just says, show me where he touched you, basically, at one point.
I mean, sure, I guess. I wasn't really feeling much from this plot. All I was getting was well, this is like a knockoff Mulder. Is kind of the feeling I was getting, and then I just had this feeling of
a bit more personality than Mulder.
I was just getting this feeling that all this episode is here to stretch out so we have 10 and that we can cut some costs because most of it's filmed in a basement with nothing. It's just the cheapest possible location.
Even the camera's not plugged in.
And even the fact that Q does show up and talks to Guinan for a scene felt super random. And I know that they summoned him technically, but I still hate that summoning thing and how it worked. And
yeah, I think it's interesting that he had to basically take the bus there though, because he didn't have his powers. Although he doesn't have powers, but he's still able to do quite a lot without them, which is kind of a bit confusing. Well, I don't know. If his powers were limited, then that would be one thing. But are they gone? Can he just not vaporize people anymore?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Have they said his powers are gone completely? Because he still walked into the building wearing an FBI top and no one stopped him from getting to the FBI basement. I assume he still has some abilities that he lets him in here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that. I just, this scene where, Guyan's you must be Q, and they have this kind of, back and forth about humanity and all the rest of it. And I suppose the argument is that it's actually this conversation with Q that by proxy she kind of respects Picard more because now she's encountered Q and sort of heard his bullshit. But I don't know, it all just felt a little underwhelming to me. And I think the sad part is that so much of what the potential of this season was, the closer we get to the end, the more I feel like they've dwindled a lot of it. Because I like the concept of them trying to come back in time and fix something. I really like the concept of them having to motivate someone who has anxiety issues, who doesn't believe in themselves, to believe in themselves. I loved that idea, and I was prepared for that to be the rest of the season. But then we had to do all this other nonsense where people keep getting arrested and kidnapped or whatever. And then you go to Jeri, and the Borg Queen's in her, and I was like, okay, you know what? The idea of the Borg Queen trying to start assimilating people and start the Borg early, effectively, in present day, is a really interesting idea. But then I get a really silly scene where Jeri's running across cars in her red dress and being all demonic as if she's possessed, and I'm just this is not
just eating batteries and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, so much of it came across really silly and stupid to me in this scene.
Well, the Jeri stuff is stuff I like because it's the most interesting, to be honest. So I like the idea of the Borg Queen taking over her and being in a modern day. And,
well, I think it's interesting as well. I think it's conceptually interesting. I think the execution of it, though, is leaving me really cold because it's they're playing it like a demonic possession with the black eyes and her being really powerful and holding her up and like, oh, she can fight it. The Jeri's still in there fighting. I'm like, yeah, this is like a possession movie now.
Yeah.
And then, but all of the running and the jumping and all that stuff in the red dress, and there's so much of it where like they've kind of made the red dress her like, oh, this is her villain outfit, right? This is Jeri's villain outfit because she's like the Borg Queen now. Like at a certain point, and I didn't get the ending because so Jeri goes to Sung and says, hey, there's two possibilities. One possibility where you're famous and important, and that's the bad timeline, right? That's the timeline that leads to the dictatorship and all the rest of it. And it's like, okay. Or the other timeline is that you're not that important. But I mean, your your descendants are going to be important. At least one of them is. But not all of them. And it's like, okay, so this is what convinces him, and it's his greed and it's his like wanting to be important that sort of lets him help her. But I thought the whole point of this, because they say it a couple times in the episode, that she can't actually start assimilating anyone yet. She doesn't have the tech or the power to do so, and that's what she's trying to get. And then ultimately she's going to try and come back and take the ship from Rios, because the ship has technology from the future on it that will let her do it. But so Soon gets her a SWAT team effectively, and at the end of the episode she like fires some nanites into the SWAT team guy, and it's like, oh, she's kind of taking them over. And like, I guess it's not full assimilation, but it still kind of felt like that seems to be working quite well. You're taking over him right now. like
yeah,
a bit fuzzy here on the specifics.
Exactly what she needs. I think Seven says that there's like 6 types of chemicals that she needs in order to become full Borg or full assimilation Borg. And one of them's found in lithium ion batteries, and that's why she's eating them. And then but yeah, I don't know. So I mean, it doesn't look like the assimilation that we know. If it's been updated for the new show, then that's fine. But like, is she just assimilating? Because we don't get the tubes in the neck, we just get the touch thing, the scratch on the chin.
Yeah, so I wasn't super keen on a lot of this stuff this episode either, which is a shame, because again, conceptually, I like some of the ideas. I think there's potential in doing this, and I think one of the problems with this is that, along with the whole like, every episode gets some characters into a predicament that we then spend the next episode dealing with, which then ends in them in another predicament, which is really formulaic and it's kind of hollow, and you can kind of see the wires being pulled. So rather than getting enveloped in the story, you're seeing kind of the beats of them building an episode of TV. The other part of that is the MacGuffins, and there's so many just MacGuffins that are kind of made up, like, oh, the Queen needs these 6 chemicals so we need to stop her from getting those 6 chemicals. Oh, so and so needs this item. Sun's daughter needs this thing. So Q has that. Like, there's so many MacGuffins that feel really thinly. And every story has these things. Like this is not saying that you shouldn't have anything that could be described as a MacGuffin, or anything that could be described as a cliffhanger where someone's in a predicament. These are things that happen in most shows, but you don't feel that when you're watching the good ones. You don't feel like you're just getting a series of MacGuffins and, oh, this is how we're ending this episode, so you'll come back next time. But I'm really the more this season goes on, the more I'm feeling these like elements just really like in my face. Like, it's like looking at a building, but I can just see the individual bricks, so it's less impressive. I know that's a weird thing to say, but like, does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's frustrating because they have 10 hours to tell the story that they want to tell, and it just seems like so much of it is wasted, when 10 hours is so much time to like tell a cohesive story with characters that you already have established, even that I don't know, it just seems like they would have had something better.
Yeah, I think on a personal level is they keep kind of avoiding doing the things that I would say make these concepts interesting. Like the idea of like, oh, the Borg Queen's on the loose in 2024 and is going to try and start assimilating people, right? Now, obviously the idea of like, how would she do that? What would she go to start achieving that? That would be something that would come up, but I feel like, yeah, finding her should be part of the difficulty, especially in this era where you've only got our internet to use, or you've only got our tools. So have the characters be limited by those tools and don't have their magic doohickeys that they usually have in the future. But in the episode, though, they literally just walk around a corner and she's eating a battery. Like, that's it.
She's been in that junkyard since she killed that guy the night before.
They just walk around the corner and find her. So like, I'm like, surely her hiding in the present day city, kind of like the opposite of a Terminator, where instead of the Terminator hunting them, they're trying to find the Terminator. Like, well, that's how you play it. That's how you write the story. You do an inverted Terminator, but instead they walk around the corner and she's like, nom 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 nom. Oh, that battery acid.
I mean, yeah, she like goes up to a club at night and bangs on a window till it breaks. I guess the redheaded guy was like, all right, and like left with her. He was like, to the nearest alleyway where she kills him and then goes to the nearest junkyard right by and starts eating stuff until well into the morning when Raffi and Seven are looking for her and they just stumble across her.
Tara, some guys, you know, they like feet. Some guys like uniforms.
You have to explain this to me.
Some guys just really like a woman who'll smash a window with their bare hands. Okay? That's just his thing. That's what he's, you know what? The glass comes down and he's like, oh baby, like you can shatter my world anytime.
He's like, yeah, I mean, she may be crazy, but them titties ain't crazy.
It's like this show has ADD or something. Like it can't just like pick a story and actually tell it properly. It has to keep shifting to different ideas constantly every episode, which is not necessarily what you want on a serialized show. Like, obviously the show's supposed to be serialized. That's what it wants to be. That's what these modern Trek shows are trying to be. And it kind of fails because it keeps having to like churn through plot when I'm like, keep it simpler. Like, don't feel like you have to like completely shake everything up constantly. Like, you know, funny enough, probably the only plotline I really kind of enjoyed this episode probably was Rios on the ship with the doctor lady and the kid, because it was just simple. The chemistry between them made it work. It wasn't amazing by any means, but it didn't annoy me. I didn't sit there and go, oh, this isn't working. It worked perfectly fine for what it was. Whereas most of the other plots, I found myself going, this isn't eliciting the reaction or the feeling you want from me, because you keep giving up on your plot ideas and moving on before you've actually explored them properly. And it's bugging me. It's really bugging me. And this Borg Queen stuff just kind of feels really rushed and hollow to me. So
yeah, the thing with the Rios plot that I don't really understand is that it seems like the Borg Queen has gotten rid of the transporter system or locked it out so that they can't use it. But I'm pretty sure Rios in the last episode just transported onto there with his lady friend and her son. So I don't know why that worked and now they can't use the transporter if she had already locked out everything.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you.
Well, I agree that I think this is a good plot also just because they do have chemistry. Why he beamed her to the ship, I don't know. But like, my only explanation is that his ulterior motive is to force everybody to just be like, well, I guess she already knows too much, so she might as well come back to the future with us. Or if you want to stay here, then, you know, she already knows. So just don't give away our secrets to anyone else.
Yeah. I just don't, like, it didn't annoy me.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other plot did. So, points. Yeah. Like that's the bar. That's the bar right now. Is that it didn't annoy me, so therefore it's the best plot line of the episode.
The Borg Queen stuff with Jeri, I really like Alison Pill's performance because she's really channeling the Borg Queen, and you know it's coming off real well. I think she's really getting all the characteristics right.
The performance is fine. Even good. I think the camera work and the direction is hurting it because it's doing far too much over the top stuff where there's a lot of like swooping in Dutch angles. There's a lot of look at she's evil because we're at a low angle looking up at her and like we're tilted to the side.
Slow motion with dress in the wind.
Yeah, like it's just going too over the top. There's even a shot actually. I think one of the first times it cuts back to the ship, probably before we're with Rios and that. Instead of just going to an establishing shot of the ship, it does this swooping in quick shot as if like we're a POV of some sort of flying beast flying through the air that arrives on the ship, and I'm just like, why was that so over the top? Why was that this stylized thing for an establishing shot? It just sometimes the art of filmmaking is just knowing to when to reel it in. Just restrain yourself. Sometimes what's right for the moment is the simple thing, and it might not feel flashy, and you might feel like you're taking the easy route by not doing something more elaborate. But that's what the confidence to know when to keep it simple is such a really valuable skill in directing.
I mean, honestly, one of the best episodes of Discovery was when they went back to the planet with from the cage and stuff like that, and they had like the whole opening was different. It was very classic Star Trek, and I think even the camera work was very minimalist, like a classic episode. I mean, it was still a bit more flashy than what we remember the Shatner years from, but it felt like you were watching an older episode of Trek, and it was kind of nice. Like I don't hate the new Star Treks like you do, or like a lot of people do, and I don't I understand. But at the same time, like it does kind of prove a point. Like you don't need to go so big all the time. Like it's okay to be a little minimalist. Like, I mean, I'm not saying everything needs to be, Kubrick, where, an establishing shot is like the whole scene takes place in an establishing shot and the camera never moves and you still get everything you need and it's beautiful or whatever. But like you don't have to go so extreme where there's just always momentum also.
Well, it's the same principle of storytelling. Like if everything's supposed to be big, then eventually big feels like nothing. It just feels hollow. It's the same with camera work and directing. If you treat everything like it's like an adrenaline moment, then none of your adrenaline moments feel like they have any anymore because you just get used to it. You become numb to it. There's value in like it's the same with even with swearing. As bizarre as it sounds, if you don't swear your whole movie and then you drop an F-bomb at the right time, it'll sound like the most harsh F-bomb possible, right? Sure. But if you're dropping F-bombs every 30 seconds, they just have no value anymore. They don't, they don't mean anything. You don't feel any weight from them.
Now you're just Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah.
So it's the same principles here, and it applies to this show in both its direction style and its writing.
And I don't think that Picard has been extra flashy, especially this season. I think it has been toned down. I
felt it this episode.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I am just getting used to it, where I just don't notice it as much anymore.
I definitely felt it this episode. I wouldn't necessarily disagree that the season as a whole is reined in a bit from season 1, but I was definitely feeling several moments this episode. There's just moments where, like, I want to like care about the Borg, and I want to care about the Borg Queen because I've loved the Borg episodes I've seen of classic Next Generation, and when you do like a Dutch angle and you've got Alison Pill hamming it up and she's got the evil all black eyes and she's like, we're going to take over the world, not literally says that, but that's kind of the vibe you get from her body language and how she's speaking, and I'm just like, this feels so hokey. Like, I don't feel any sense of threat here. I feel this is a TV villain as opposed to feeling like I'm actually invested. I'm into the story and she's intimidating or scary. Instead, I just feel like, oh, there's an actress hamming it up and the camera's tilted. And it's such a I know it's such a canonical distinction, but like it really does feel different.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I guess just to bring up like more of the plot of the show is I think we see what?
I was going to say who cares, but I need to go. I was joking.
Well, I mean, we sort of are getting some answers here. So we know, like, the theme of the show seems to be trauma and dealing with trauma, and like how something from the past is kind of like time travel. Like you're just stuck in that time. It's actually very similar to the theme of the opening of the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine, because something traumatic happened to Cisco, and like he meets these aliens, and they're like, well, you're here, but you're also in this time. So like, why are you still in this time? And he's like, well, because, you know, a big thing happened and I can't escape it. So I think like this whole season seems to be built around that, especially with, like, the whole time travel thing anyway. And then we get this FBI guy who also has trauma that he gets over quite quickly, it seems. Picard in the last episode has trauma. Raffi also has trauma because she blames herself for the death of Elnor, because she convinced him to stay in Starfleet for her own selfish reasons. And, you know, Seven always has trauma because she was a former Borg. And I guess Renee Picard's plot is basically done. It was done in the one like 10-minute scene that she had with Jean-Luc Picard, and so long as like they stay out of it, like she's still planning on going to Europa. So like I guess she's over her trauma, even though she saw an elderly man get hit by a vehicle. So anyway, we have that. I guess that's the main theme of the show. And Q also, who is dying, we find out, is dealing with his own trauma of that, of trying to deal with what that means, if he can handle it, and he can't. So he's like manipulating things and blaming everybody else, like Picard, for something that, you know, he wouldn't have been even involved in unless Q had brought him there. So anyway.
You know what would help all of this? Because there's a problem with your theme when, like, some of the examples of it, like, so let's take Raffi with Elnar. At this point, I am so sick to death of hearing her whine about Elnar. Like, I don't care anymore.
Every time Elnor shows up, I'm like, oh, I wish he was in more of these episodes, because I do like Elnor.
I don't dislike Elnar, but I'm sick of this guilt. I'm sick of her seeing him. I like the flashback scene in this, and then her admitting, oh, he stayed back because of me, it was all my fault. It's been so one note and just the same thing over and over again that at this point, every time it comes up, it just annoys me now. And it's an example of having a shallow plot point which you just repeat constantly to keep reminding the audience that it exists without actually advancing it every time it comes up, that it just gets irritating. And then you get to the point where I'm like, I'm actively now hoping you feel more pain because you keep bringing this up and it's annoying me now. Like, it's actively making me like Raffi less. And that's bad writing. Like, that's really frustrating writing, because you're taking a character who is likable enough because the actress is good in the role and she has a good presence. But when the writing starts to make me dislike characters because it makes them irritating to watch, like, you know, so see if next season, this is to go to Jeri here, see if next season Jeri is once again, like, influenced or taken over and ends up killing someone, I'm going to be so annoyed that they're doing it again, because this is now twice this has happened.
She's the Lieutenant Barclay of this series, that's all.
Yeah, you've got that. Rios, if anything's actually more likable this season, so, you know, that's fine. But I thought he was less likable in season 1. Picard has been kind of frustrating to me this season, I would say. Because there's just moments and like there's parts where it feels like he's just there as a prop. He's just kind of like what the plot's revolving around, but he's not actually really that important to anything going on. Other than the fact that he's the one that Q comes and speaks to, and he knows about Q. Other than that, like, he feels like he has so little impact on anything so far in this season that he feels kind of just there.
I don't know that he's really had to make any like really difficult decisions yet. It's all just been, well, we have to get to this, and now we have to get to this, and now we have to get to here. Like, there hasn't really been and he'll sit down and talk to somebody for 5 minutes and they'll change their mind about things, but like he hasn't really had any difficult decisions to make yet. Maybe it'll happen with Jeri.
Maybe it will. I think it goes back into what we were talking about earlier, where the structure of this season is very much just, oh, it's the end of the episode. We've set up that we're going to have to kind of like almost like a heist style thing at a ball. Okay, that's what the next episode is going to be. Until the end of that episode, we set up, oh, Picard's been hit by a car. Next episode, we have to go to Picard's head. Oh, we're going to do that. Oh, by the end of that episode, oh, Picard and Jeri have been arrested. Oh, I guess we're going to be dealing with that. And the next episode is mostly their weird interrogation scenes that are kind of iffy.
The hurry up and wait plot structure.
Yeah. And then end of this episode, you've got, Borg Queen Jeri's got a SWAT team and she's coming for the ship, and Rios and the doctor lady and kid are there on their own.
I guess I don't really know who this Soon is. He seems to be pretty isolated and also not very well regarded amongst other scientists for his eugenics experiments. But he has access to like ex-military team members who are, I guess they're like a militia now, or he's got whatever you need. He's your guy. Yep.
I don't really like him that much. Him and his daughter.
Who meets Q in a virtual reality system, which I guess Q can do even though he doesn't have powers.
So many things in this show are just these random bullshit, like, new things that just come out of nowhere for no reason. And maybe Q's got a good reason for why he's given the cure that actually works to the daughter, but I'm just like, see when it cuts back to her and she's watching the videos still of like the other failed like daughters, and I'm just like, you were in the last episode. You've been doing this for over a whole episode off camera.
I did laugh when she's talking to Q and she goes, "Wait, am I an experiment?" I'm like, "You haven't figured that out yet? Like, I thought you figured this out the day before."
So I did not enjoy the confrontation with her and Sung, like, and the going outside and his shock and all the rest of it. And the sad part is that once again, like, conceptually, if I dig into this, I can kind of see an interesting idea in there somewhere, which is the idea.
She's probably going to save him, right? Like, he actually does love her as a daughter.
Maybe. No, what I was going to say is the concept here that I actually think is kind of interesting potentially is that, okay, so he's been trying all this time to create life, just not the traditional method, and finally succeeds, and she walks out on him, and he has to kind of deal with that rejection. The idea that he created life, and then that life has rejected him for who he is. Mm-hmm. There are some interesting things you could do with that. I feel like almost, the very next time we see him after this scene where she leaves him, it's like, oh, hey, I'm the Borg Queen, and I can give you a good future if you work with me. And he's like, yes, my legacy is the most important thing. Like, he's so two-dimensional, and it's just I don't know, it's just so, everything's so hokey and thinly written. And it's the sort of thing where you see, like, at the start of the season, you have a lot more hope, and it's only because
I thought it was a good premiere, yeah.
And it's only because over the course of the season, well, I didn't really like the first episode. It was more the second episode that I kind of liked. But anyway, but like over the course of the season, though, is they keep squandering the ideas and they keep doing nothing with them and just doing like hokey TV, like get out clauses, like constantly, to the point where it doesn't really feel like anything matters. You could probably just watch the finale, skip the rest of the season, watch the finale, and just get where it ends up, just to get what the point of the season was, and maybe even have a better time, because there'll be some things that you wouldn't necessarily have got the build up to. You wouldn't be annoyed that they'd squandered so many things along the way, and you could just maybe take what the finale is on its own merits. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated. So, I agreed with your opening statement, is that it is technically better than last week's episode. I will agree with that it is a little bit better than last week's episode. But that is such a low bar, and I do think this season is veering very dangerously off a cliff. I'm not really convinced it can kind of salvage it in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I like seeing Vulcans this episode.
I know you hate being negative when it comes to Star Trek, but this has just been a rough time. These last 2 episodes have really shit the bed.
I mean, we'll see what happens. And we get a little more of Raffi and Seven's relationship. They seem to want to fight in like the worst times, and I don't know if they're trying to play it as like a cutesy Sam and Diane thing, but it is just coming off like these people just really don't like each other at all. Like I can't buy that they were ever like in an intimate relationship.
Yeah, it feels like a total lack of chemistry. Like you don't, because there is like a distinct thing, because even when you watch a show like Cheers, because since you referenced Sam and Diane, as soon as they start bickering, even before they've had a relationship, it kind of feels like they're bickering because there's something there. There's a spark of chemistry. Here, when they're fighting, it just kind of feels again like really generic TV.
Yeah.
Like
plus the Sam and Diane trope is kind of a dated thing anyway. Like most people, if they fight that much, should not be together. And it's not because they're like fighting their feelings for each other. It's like, no, like your relationship, if it's always like this, you guys probably are not right for each other. And like that became a trope, you know, throughout lots of rom-coms and stuff. And
it's a comedy. That doesn't matter. It's in a comedy. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, sure. I understand that. This is not a comedy. So like when you do it, it just comes off as very mean. Like they just are mean to each other.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's the thing, is that there's no spark, there's no like element of like, oh, they're referencing something that means something to both of them, so there's a little bit of humor sprinkled in or a little bit of feeling. It's just constantly, hey, Raffi, you manipulate people, you manipulate me. Oh, you think I'm just good because I can like remember what it feels like to be a Borg, so therefore I can predict the Borg Queen and what she's doing. Then stop making me relive my trauma. And then, you know, like Raffi's all upset because of Elnor, that's it. Elnor Musk.
You're just complaining that she says his name too much.
Yeah, and then, you know, so both sides of it have been kind of weird, with just the constant sniping and I think the problem is that it's also every conversation ends with them having like some tension, because like neither one of them is willing to like give an inch and just like share a moment with the other. Like every single conversation has to turn into, and that's why we broke up. Like, I mean, they don't say that line, but that's the vibe you get from it.
No, I mean, they basically do.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, Raffi's just like, when Seven's explaining the motivations of the Borg Queen and stuff, and Raffi's like, oh, well, that sounds very familiar, or like everything checks all the boxes, you know, like why you won't be with me or something, or why we didn't work out.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what I was saying about making me dislike or hate characters that I otherwise should like. Even if you're not necessarily disliking these two characters, you're making me dislike them being together on screen. Like, you're making me want them to be in separate plots.
I honestly, like, I don't, there's going to be a scene at one of the episodes at the end where they get back together and they're going to give it another try, and I'm going to be like, why? Like, you guys either see couples counseling or like just call it quits. Just be friends.
Yeah, every interaction they've had this season has pretty much made me think they should never be together. Like, not even just as a couple, they should probably avoid each other's paths from here on out, because they're just making each other miserable.
Yeah, they should like just have Seven with Picard and like Raffi with the Rios or something as a pairing instead. Well,
so Picard and Rios don't get to meet up because they've each picked their friend group. It's like, no, I got you in the divorce. Picard, you're with me.
I guess it would make more sense for Raffi and Picard. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
JL.
JL, yes. So I just stop. Like, there's a lot of likable actors on this show, and you keep making their characters like kind of annoying and unlikable. Stop doing it. Stop doing it, writers. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge deal that you get, Patrick Stewart to come back and do 3 seasons of a beloved character that, don't waste it. I feel like 2 out of 3 have not been good, so you got 1 left, and you're bringing back the entire cast of Next Generation minus Will Wheaton, and I don't know if that's going to be enough for me to, even as a super fan, to forgive him.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that them bringing the cast back should be, if the show was good up until this point.
It's almost like it's an apology. Like, we're sorry. Here's Riker. Here's Troy. Here's Gates, and
it's not. It is an apology, but it's not just that. It's a crutch, because it's like, we're not going to make the writing any better. We're just going to give you all these actors and hope that like smooths everything over, so you won't care that the writing underneath it is mediocre at best. That's what the hope is, because if they actually brought some of the writers back from Next Gen who actually wrote like some of the important episodes and seasons,
get like Ron Moore back and stuff.
Yeah, Ron Moore, who's still like, he did the new Battlestar Galactica, which admittedly it's been a while since that now, but he was still a very successful working science fiction writer for a long time.
Yeah.
So get him back to write the new stuff. But instead, we get this. We get, was it Kurtzman, who is, or is it Artsy, whatever one it is, because they split up, but they used to be a pair.
I don't know. There's like a bunch of writers who I think all have like award-winning writers. Like one of them's like a Pulitzer Prize winner, one of them's like a Hugo Award winner, which is the science fiction version of that, basically.
Yes,
and
who's the runner? Who's the one who's actually making the decisions and like the leader of the team? That's the important person.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I could check. I'm not going to bother. But
is it Michael Chabon? He's the one who did like the that short trek that everyone liked. I liked it too. The one where they go the ship's in the future, and it's like a love story between the ship and the really attractive guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he the showrunner?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying yes.
Okay.
I'm saying yes. I remember the short. Not yes. I know it's him.
Yeah. Well, I think he's the one who's like the Hugo Award-winning writer.
Okay. Yeah, I suspect that is it Kurtzman or Arts? I can't remember which one it is that's got the Trek
Kurtzman.
deal. Is it Kurtzman? Okay, because they used to be a team and they wrote a lot of terrible movies, including Star Trek Into Darkness, funnily enough. And for some reason, Kurtzman got the keys to the Star Trek kingdom, and he's the one like overseeing like everything right now.
Yeah, he's the Feige, which is just a job title now. We know exactly what it means.
But that is kind of a nightmare scenario. He's like one of the worst possible people they could have given that job to, and we are where we are.
Because 2 episodes left.
Because of him.
I hope everything wraps up well, and I still like all these characters.
Because I went through a similar, because I remember liking Jeri at the start of season 1, and then he did all the weird murder stuff, and I was like, oh, what is this? It's not even just that I dislike you now. It's like I don't understand it. I don't understand what your character is anymore.
I think she's the best actress out of all, or the best actor out of all of them. Like she's still giving it her all, and she's very good.
I don't disagree that Alison Pills.
I actually think a lot of her performance in this episode reminds me of like early 7 of 9, also, which is just kind of fun to see.
Oh yeah, I'm not debating the actor, but it doesn't matter if the writing just makes the character all over the place. It's like even Patrick Stewart, fantastic actor, but you put him in a room with some dumb dialogue and it's going to sound dumb. It doesn't matter.
We seem to be done with this Guinan, which I'm kind of glad. Like I didn't hate her, but like it was getting weird. So
yeah, her weird like sending a message to Picard was a bit like. At least as where I am in Next Gen right now, I have never seen Guinan do anything of this sort, so it felt really...
but she's pretty elusive as to what her abilities are. Like, she keeps things pretty close to the chest. So the fact that she would have some sort of ability that, at least something that would... We always suspect she was more powerful than she said, because
but like,
Q's like afraid of her.
Yeah, but hold on. You're not annoyed that they kept it secretive and intentionally mysterious all that time, and then this news show just throws it away in in a moment that is not that important. Like, she projects to him from a different room in the same building to give him information that she could have just given him like an hour later.
Well, he needed to hear the message in order to be able to ask the not Mulder what, why is he so obsessed with aliens?
No, what do you mean he needed to? He didn't need to hear anything. What are you talking about? He didn't need it. Why did he need it?
She said, because Q left a message of, like, what was it? Like, all humans are
stuck in the
attached are stuck in the past.
Yeah. So why?
And that's what gets Picard to ask him about his past. He's like, that's the key, But
did his past matter ultimately? Because he was going to get fired anyways. So, like, they were going to be let go.
Well, it matters, in the way that, he still helped somebody. It wasn't,
I did not feel that in the moment the stakes were high enough that Guinan, who is very mysterious about what she can do, would just do this now out of nowhere. Like, given what the stakes have been in some Next Gen episodes I've seen her in, it's weird that this moment is the one where she whips out this ability where she can sort of like teleport a message to Picard. Like, it just feels so throwaway, and it just feels like the creators of this show just wanting to do something. Like, we're going to do it because we can, without, does it make sense for the character that was established and has a long history?
I don't know. Like, it's not as bad as like R2D2 can fly in the prequels. Like, to me, that's worse.
I don't remember that. I've gladly purged that from my memory.
It's because that's like an ability that just never comes back. R2, you could fly. You got jetpacks built in there. But, so that seems much more egregious than like Guinan has abilities that we don't know about. And here's one of them.
Yeah, but it should be a big moment when she has to use one, and it feels like a big deal that you've seen it. But this doesn't feel like a big deal. It's like a throwaway moment.
I don't know if anything really feels like a big deal in the show, that's all.
That is an indictment. That is like the most criminal indictment you could give at any story, is that nothing feels like a big deal. Everything feels like it's going through just like a sort of...
well, it did in the beginning, but now, like, I don't know, things are just fizzling out. I'm not as...
We're going through the motions. We're going through just the typical, like, you've seen all these sorts of things on Star Trek or whatever before.
All right, I'm done being pessimistic and cynical. Let's wrap this up.
we're pretty much done. But
I'm gonna go watch something good before I fall asleep.
So you admit this was not good. Therefore, not a 10.
I will never admit that.
Not a 10.
Still Trek. Still got my boy on screen. Peace, dude.
Peace stew. Don't say peace stew. It sounds like you're making a stew out of piss.
What? Well, why not peas? I think people actually eat.
Because you say peas, you don't say pea. You say peas.
You don't say peas stew. No one says that. You say pea soup. You don't say peas soup. No, this is not a soup of urine. We're not there yet. This is pea stew.
So still unpleasant.
Without the I like pea soup. As long as it's seasoned right. Lots of salt. Need more salt. That's what this show needs, more salt.
It needs the main thing. It needs some, like, all it is it's all the gravy and the seasonings without any of the actual food. Like, all of the hearty food that actually gives you a nice diet, right? The protein, the fiber, all that's missing. It's just the flavor on top with none of the actual real ingredients.
I don't like food metaphors. We're done.
Hey, I avoided saying the meat because you're vegan, because I was like, no, I'll make this work without that part, because it can work without that part.
I had peas for dinner. It's delicious.
All right, well, we're definitely done if we're talking about what you had for dinner. So, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you thought of this episode of Picard. In the comments below, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that jazz. And congratulations to the last episode of Picard, which received the biggest YouTube comment I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I read it. It was.
You read the whole thing?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't a nasty comment or anything. It was just a very in-depth, detailed thought process of the entire episode, which, you know, credit to the effort that went into it. But this is episode 8. We got 2 episodes left. We'll see how it goes. So check us out at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support everything we do. Probably not so much these, because this is just a rambling review series at this point. But some of the more the better shows that we talk about, that we actually get a chance to analyze things properly. This is more of an autopsy. This review series. It's an autopsy of what went wrong. Why is it dead?
It's so sad.
Come
on, Star Trek, be better.
We just this isn't out yet, but we just recorded the Alien 3 episode of our sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment. And
good show.
I think the comparison I want to make here is that I'm Charles Dance saying it's dead, but Tara's Ripley saying, no, I need to be sure how it died. Let me see the body. Let's open it up, please. I have to know. And I'm like, light the furnace. We're burning it. We're burning it now.
Cut that sucker open.
Ah, yes. But yeah, that is us. So thank you once again. Hopefully you enjoyed whatever this was. I think some people enjoy the insanity and hilarity that this.
I don't.
The sad part is
I'm not having a good time.
The less you enjoy these reviews, the more I find myself enjoying them towards the end.
I'm not going to let you have that satisfaction. It's going to end great. I know it.
Oh, well, there you go, guys. Like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there. I said last week I'd start just doing the Star Trek outro, but I'm trying to think of something specific to this show, because for Next Gen I say the Wesley Crusher joke that I always make at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to switch to something for this.
You need a Deus Ex Riker. I mean, like last season.
Deus Ex Riker.
Save us, Deus Ex Riker.
Sure, you could say Data Ex Machina, since his name's a bit closer.
Yeah, but Riker's higher up on my tier.
You keep watching Star Trek, guys, and yeah. Set phasers to stun or something.